Good evening, everyone. Myself is R.K. Shukla, and today we are going to discuss PSIR. So let us begin with preamble itself. And as far as the preamble is concerned, this year there is a probable question uh, which have been introduced by 42nd Amendment. As we know that secularism and socialism, these two terms, and the third one is integrity, but particularly the question has been raised against secularism and socialism. So there might be a question in our main exam, if secularism and socialism can be introduced by one amendment, then it can be removed, repealed by another amendment. Discuss, comment. Why this question may is probable in main exam? Because this question has been raised by Mr. Subramaniam. In fact, his question was based on technicality. That was a technical question because when he raised this question, Mr. Subramaniam Swami, when he raised this question was asked on the basis of the date. On that particular date, these two terms has not been in our preamble. So that is the one point. But another point is, right now in we are having the government led by the rightist wing. So they have objection over these 2 points. Why they have objection over these 2 points? For some reasons. Point one. As far as these 2 terms are there. One is your this secularism, and another is socialism. So secularism term, as you know, there has been a debate during our Constituent Assembly whether it should be introduced, it should be put within the preamble itself or not. Because it is our preamble that represents the gist, the soul of our Constitution. Because it discusses not only the objectives but ideals also. And that has been in Nehru himself. Pandit Nehru himself has represented in very during Constituent Assembly, when he himself has represented objectives of our Constitution, the very first resolution that has been passed as objective of our Constitution. If you compare the objectives of our Constitution, which have been represented by Mr. Nehru, and with our preamble, you will find most of the points are common. Most of. So, one thing is very clear that preamble talks about our objectives as well as the ideals. Now, then question arises, if the original Constitution does not comprise these 2 terms, then why later on these 2 terms have been introduced in our preamble? Let us go inside. Now, see inside the story. Inside the story is Mrs. Gandhi introduced this one during emergency period. During emergency periods, through 42nd Amendment. It has been introduced through 42nd Amendment, It has been introduced through 42nd Amendment. Now, and it was a period, it was the period 1976. And this 42nd Amendment is also known as the mini constitution because it have affected many articles of our Constitution, even including preamble. And after that it is Minerva Bill, and that came after the Keshwanand Bharti case, and then after 1976, then again there is a very important case in Supreme Court which is known as Minerva Mill case. But right now we are not going to discuss what are the cases. Right now we are discussing particularly 42nd Amendment, and that also in a particular contest with secularism and socialism. Now, so why Mrs. Gandhi? What is the objection of the rightist wing? The objection of rightist wing is that these 2 terms has not been in our original Constitution. So why it has been introduced? Why it has been put within the preamble itself? And this is point 1. And point 2, why these 2 terms have been put during emergency? Now, and what are the views of Mr. Nehru and Mr. Ambedkar? Let us discuss one by one. That's very interesting story, and we should understand it. All the implications and complications of these 2 terms. And also, we should understand the procedure of our amendment, and also the procedure of to repealing, and what were the different dimensions. That's very interesting story if you want to understand it. And we should understand, because this is a very preamble of our constitution. So see, what Nehru has said. As far as these two terms are concerned, that's very interesting. As far as the secularism is concerned, Nehru says, what was the words of Nehru? Mr. Nehru, our first Prime Minister. The words of Mr. Nehru were, the words of Mr. Nehru were that this is not a good word. Secularism is not a good word. This was the sentence concerning secularism given by the Nehru. And what Ambedkar has said? Ambedkar has said categorically that we do not need to introduce this term secularism, because we have, as far as the secularism, as far as the rights of religion is concerned, we have put it is within the very preamble, within the very ambit of fundamental right itself. And exclusively we have mentioned it. So we do not need to put it separately. And we do not need, as far as the preamble is concerned, no, there is no chance to put, there is no question, to put it in within the preamble. This was the statement of your Ambedkar. And the third thing, Ambedkar, further he explained it, that our composite culture, this India is known for its diversity and, multiplicity of the cultures as well as the ethnicity and everything. So that is why and we have a long tradition of this composite culture. So we do not need to, represent it separately. So these are the views of Mr. Nehru and Mr. Ambedkar. So one thing is very clear, that there have been a long tradition of the composite culture. There have been a long tradition of diversity and unity in India. There have been a long culture of multiculturalism and multi-ethnic, the ethnicity. So this country has many many cultures, many ethnic sects, and even if you can say, if you examine, we can see the different not races. We cannot say exactly races, but in from northeast to to Tamil Nadu, if you compare, you will find there are slight differences in this, the races also. So the point is, this India has so diversified, and we have been living on this continent for more than 5,000 years. So that is why neither Mr. Ambedkar, nor Mr. Nehru, they did not realize to put it separately. So they say, okay, we have this secularism is our in blood. Toleration. The essence of secularism is toleration. And both thinkers accept that this toleration is in our blood, in our culture, in our way of life. So we do not need to put it separately. That's it. Now I think we understand what were the views of Mr. Nehru and Mr. Ambedkar. Okay. And now then what went wrong? Then what happened when why Mrs. Gandhi needed it to put within the preamble itself? That's very interesting. And I'm talking about we have discussed only the secularism. And what was the socialism? Let us first discuss the socialism, then we'll move the views of Mrs. Gandhi. Opus socialism, that's also very interesting. Nehru openly denied it. During Constituent Assembly, he repeatedly said that we are not socialist state. No. Nehru says, no. We have and what's the interesting thing is, Nehru says we want to establish, our aim and objective is to establish socialistic pattern of society, not the socialistic state. And Nehru further says, our socialism is not a poor socialism. That to divide, there is a very interesting story. And there is also a very interesting dialogue between Gandhi and Nehru. But we will not discuss the dialogue, what is the dialogue between Gandhi and Nehru over the socialism right now. This is the socialism, everyone has defined it in its own way, whether it is Lohia, whether it is Gandhi, whether it is Nehru. and more or less you can say Ambedkar, but Ambedkar is very close to Nehru. So they all have, even your Acharya Narendev, even your Deen Dayal Upadhyay, they all have accepted the socialism, but they have interpreted in their own way. Right now, we are not going to discuss in such a detail what Nehru has said about the socialism. Nehru simply says, okay, we want to establish socialistic pattern of society. So, in one word, you can say Nehru wanted to establish, accept this Fabian socialism, which had been at that time accepted in England, and that has been, elaborated by Lasky. So that was the point. Nehru wanted to establish socialistic pattern. What is the meaning? What is the difference between socialistic pattern of society and socialism? Once you say socialism, once you say socialistic state, that state will be then all the means of production and all the material resources will be under the control of the state itself. But Nehru wanted to implement mixed economy. So Nehru says, no, this is not right way to have a control or to have the control of over every all natural resources of a state. That's not right. And at the same time, it would also not be good to open all the resources for public. So Nehru has applied, implemented mixed economy. That was the vision of Nehru. We can discuss the pros and cons of mixed economy, but that's another issue. The point is, Nehru says that these natural resources should be distributed in equitable manner. Neither there should be concentration of the wealth, nor it should be there should be no concentration of the wealth, right? And everyone can avail it equally and easily. That is our socialism. Okay, so Nehru wanted to establish socialistic pattern of society, not the socialism. Because once you say the socialism or the socialist state, then it becomes a centralized state like Russia. Russia at that time was a socialist state. Still it is the socialist state. And another is your China. So we did not want to establish such a socialist state. We were the democratic state. So India was defined as sovereign, republic, democratic nation. But now it has been become sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. But our question is, democratic republic is fine. Every term has its own meaning. There is a certain precise meaning of democracy. There is a precise meaning of a republic. There is a precise, but these two terms are new. So now you understand over the socialism what the Nehru says and what Ambedkar says. Ambedkar agrees over the socialism exactly with Nehru. Hardly there is any difference. Over the Indian villages, both have the same opinion. Over the national resources, both have the same opinion. So in this context, you can say the Nehru, as far as the democracy is concerned, there are some differences between Mr. Nehru and Mr. Ambedkar. But as far as the socialism is concerned, there is hardly any difference between Nehru and Ambedkar. And that's also very interesting if you want to understand. What are the differences concerning democracy or over democracy between Nehru and Ambedkar? So we will be discussing later on because that is also part of your preamble. Right now we are discussing only these 2 points. Okay, second. So now you can understand what are the views of Nehru and Ambedkar over secularism as well as over socialism. Okay, so these two things we have discussed. The views of Nehru and Ambedkar over the socialism and secularism, and socialism as well as the secularism. Okay, now, so why Mrs. Gandhi needed it to put into a preamble? Now, that's very interesting. The story behind it is, that it's not a story, it's a real incident. In 1971, the Bangladesh emerged as a new nation. Earlier, it was the Eastern Pakistan, And that's very, very interesting if you want to understand. Eastern Pakistan and Western Pakistan. If you examine it, what blunder they have done, Mrs. Gandhi has been suffering from this blunder which have been done by the Britishes, which have been done by the British government. They they accepted the partition of the nation, fine. Ultimately, Mountbatten planned it, and we accepted the Mountbatten plan, and the both political parties agreed over that particular point on the partition of nation. Okay, but the partition, the way it has been done, if you want to understand what were the blunders and what were the big mistakes concerning the partition, you must consider Dr. Ambedkar. Because, and two blunders, if you want to understand, two blunders have been done. One, on one hand, Eastern Pakistan and Western Pakistan. Can you imagine that one country which is having two parts, and from one side, from Western Pakistan to Eastern Pakistan, or from Eastern Pakistan to Western Pakistan, throughout the year, day and night, all the time, you have to provide the railways, you have to provide the roadways, you have to provide all transformation. Is it possible to interaction on such a basis in two sovereign nations? And it is very clear for Nehru and Gandhi, it was a new experience. But for British government, it was not a new experience, So they understand it, that it was not a new experience also. So they did understand all the pros and cons of such a division, such a partition. You cannot doubt it now. After 75 years, now you can understand what the kind of blunder they have done. And Mrs. Gandhi has been suffering from this one. Every day, the train which moves from, which comes from Lahore to and goes to Dhaka. All, the people, they disturb the whole nation. And every day. And throughout, that was a very disturbing. And then what happened? The rest of the story, First they stopped the railways, then stopped the roadways, then stopped the airways. And when Mrs. Gandhi fed up, and then she took a big step to make the free Eastern Pakistan from Western Pakistan. And the conditions at the prevalent at that time, the conditions were in favor of Mrs. Gandhi. Approx 1 lakh people have been at that time, taken shelter in India as a refugee. And it was very difficult for Mrs. Gandhi to accommodate them for such a huge number of, the refugees from Bangladesh. And also, there have been incident, the new elected prime minister, which have been a new elected prime minister from Eastern Pakistan, who was not accepted to Western Pakistan, and he has been murdered, So all these things, all these incidents favored Mrs. Gandhi to make it free. And it was Russia which favored us, and it was Mr. Nixon, American president, who warned Mrs. Gandhi that you cannot intervene in the integrity and sovereignty of any nation. But it was Mrs. Gandhi, who took such a brave decision, and she made it free. And now we are free from everyday disturbances. You can say that this is not right way to intervene in sovereignty and integrity of any nation, but at the same time, you can say if mistake has been done, then that must be rectified. You cannot continue the same mistake. So the mistakes which have been done by our forefathers should be rectified by us. This is our very responsibility. Okay, and responsible people and the great leaders take the responsibility and they solve the problem. So credit must go to, Mrs. Gandhi. And now come back. So this is Mrs. Gandhi who took, so that is why Mrs. Gandhi has put this. Now, so you can understand, now we can understand if it has been put by the Mrs. Gandhi through 42nd Amendment, of course during emergency, fine, but why Mrs. Gandhi? On one hand, I tell you, there have been two reasons. One is the international politics. Mrs. Gandhi wanted to give answer to Mr. Nixon. when she put the term socialism, she gave a clear message that we are not capitalists, hardcore capitalists like you. We also we are, of course, we are tend towards socialism. To make it very clear that our objective is socialism, socialistic pattern of society, equilibrium of society, equitable distribution of resources, not the concentration of wealth on few hands, not to development of capitalism. So to make it very clear, loud and clear, distinct and clear and distinct, she gave a very clear and distinct message to Mr. Nixon and whole entire Western world that we are, particularly to Mr. Nixon. As far as your term socialism is concerned, and as far as the term secularism is concerned, I tell you what was as far as the secularism term is concerned, Mrs. Gandhi has introduced this term to make sure that the particular community, we are talking about the Muslim community. Muslim communities, they should not feel insecure in India, because that once Bangladesh has been made free, the eastern Pakistan has been created as a Bangladesh, a new country, then the Muslim of India, somewhere there was a feeling that they can, they can be afraid or scared. And so Mrs. Gandhi wanted to make it clear that you need not to be scared. You need not to be afraid. You should be very clear that nothing is going to happen with you. So the masses should be very clear, and that is why Mrs. Gandhi put the secularism, that this is our objective and this is our ideal. And secularism is our ideal, one of the ideal and objective. So to make this message very clear, loud and clear, Mrs. Gandhi has put within the preamble itself. Now you can understand the whole dimension, the views of Nehru, Mr. Ambedkar, Mrs. Gandhi, and the conditions that that provoked Mrs. Gandhi to put these two terms within the preamble. So I think now the dimensions are now the last, the dimension or the last segment of the answer is. Now you may ask a question, now as writers, they say if it can be added by one amendment, that it can be repealed by another amendment. The question is, 2 points are there. That's very interesting. One, as you know that after the emergency, the Janata government came. And the Janata government was led by Mr. Morarji Desai and further by Chaudhary Charan Singh. And it was Mr. Morarji Desai who himself made during his period, 2 amendments has been done, 43rd, 46th, and 44th. And in the 43rd, he repealed 31D, which had been introduced by Mrs. Gandhi. And, and in 44, he has repealed many provisions of 42nd. Then now you should ask the question, why Mr. Morarji Desai did not realize that why these 2 terms should be removed from the preamble? Can we ask the question of the wisdom of that government? It means what? It means it is very clear that the government, Morarji Desai government, realized it that these 2 terms should be continued, should not be removed. So that is very clear. Now, as far as this government is concerned, the government, rightist government, the government led by this rightist wing is concerned, they have a different kind, they want to remove these 2 terms, and particularly they are concerned with the secularism. Because their standpoint have been always the secularism of Congress is pseudo-secularism, and this is the rightist wing, which have been propagated right from the Bal Gangadhar Tilak, that is rooted in Bal Gangadhar Tilak, then Savarkar and all that. So that was the wing, that was, another wing, which have been flowing, which have been existing during our freedom struggle. So they want to see our nation in a particular way. But is it right to to perceive? As you know, if you are the student of political science, you understand that secularism and toleration is very part of democracy. So that is part and parcel of democracy. How is it possible that any nation, and the consequences they have realized. If you, and also you could, the very nerve of democracy is to protect the minority. If you cannot protect and that is why Mill or even Ambedkar have said, and Mill has said that the very beautiful, Mill says the voice of the minority, the soul of democracy lies in voice of minority. This is the state, Mill himself has said, who is a great advocate of democracy, great exponent of democracy. He has repeatedly, he has emphasized on this particular point that the voice of minority, the soul of democracy lies in voice of minority. So minority must be protected. Majority, the democracy is of course rule of majority, but it cannot exercise majoritarianism. I have repeatedly asked this question during, and again, that will be another important question in your main exam. Democracy is the rule of majority. Is it can it be exercised in way of majoritarianism? Comment or discuss. So these are, as you know, of course the democracy is rule of majority, but it is not a majoritarianism. Any government cannot behave in arbitrary manner. No. So that has to run with the consent of the people, with the consent of the public. That's it. So this is your question, and now I think we have discussed all the dimensions, and you can discuss one by one in separate paragraphs. If you know how to represent it, then you can discuss all the points separately, and you can get higher marks. No issue. This is a very, this time this is one of your probable question, and all right. Thank you.